Although working on that turret, already gone.
And Lyra is coming, so I mean, and Envy could actually look to fight there as well. I think they will.
Arrow through mid lane.
4 men here now.
Long arrow! Oh my god! Nails getting the butt side.
Oh!
Serap's gonna dunk him. Cataclysm used. Seraph in a 1v2 as Nitsky's on a rampage taking down Acadian. Seraph gets the kill. Apollo is on point this weekend.
Hello and welcome to another episode of LCS Tonight. I'm your host, James Patterson. Tonight, I've got joining me this guy and that guy. How are we doing?
Good. I thought you were going to introduce us by our names,
No,
Dash.
I introduced you by your show.
That guy
This
and this guy.
and that. Or
I'm
rather,
actually
or
that.
I don't have to choose today, though. I get both.
Technically, I am that because I'm always on this side.
But
and
he's
always on that side.
this or that with Kobe and Jack.
It's
right? We digress.
We're on LCS tonight.
So now I regret even doing that because I didn't expect you guys to respond the way you did. But hey, now that things are off the rails, let's get them right back on, starting with the standings. As we pull those up, let's go ahead and see how the teams are stacked up. We got 3 teams tied for first place. Let's talk about that for a moment. Of course, these are names that we're used to seeing near the top of the table, but once again, a very interesting race for those top positions leading into the final 3 weeks of the split.
Yeah, and the thing that stands out there is the 20-7 game record by TSM. 4 and 5 losses, fewer than Immortals and CLG respectively, on top of the fact that they came back from Rift Rivals and people were expecting a letdown. Phoenix won and Cloud9 both 0-2'd, so TSM actually looking really strong.
Absolutely. And so while those 3 teams are at the top, you mentioned C9 sliding a little bit down to 6th, and we've got actually Dignitas and Envy. Dignitas, a lot of people are ready to count out at the beginning, or rather in these last few weeks, because of their 0-4 run. And here they are making a surge up the standings again.
Adrian the Savior comes in. He's actually making a ton of plays for the team. They're being really proactive, and they look so much better with him.
We'll get back to their 2-0 week as a whole. First, I want to talk about the Immortals versus C9 series specifically. So, well, right as I say that, it looks like we jump ahead to the Dignitas B-roll. So, hey, Dignitas 2-0 week. Right back to that. Let's go.
Yeah, so much to do with Adrian when he had only been practicing with the team for a week. So these guys are just totally perplexing because they had been on a 4-match losing streak and everyone did count them out, but Shrimp pulls out the Nunu in almost all of their successful games.
Been singing his praises for months now.
Yeah,
and
if Shrimp is faster to the tank jungle train and Dignitas adapts faster to the meta, that could be what pushes them into the playoffs, because we got Duskblade coming next patch.
I don't think that's what's pushing him in. Everybody's already all over the tanks. I don't think he's faster to the tanks.
Who else is playing Nunu well?
I think that he's the only one that's playing Nunu, or Contracts actually played Nunu as well, and they did win with it. But everybody else is all over all of the tanks right now. Maokai's all over the place. Gragas all over the place. Nunu is also getting some significant nerfs on the next patch.
Yeah, the Nunu and the Kalista doing big work for them this week, as you mentioned as well. Adrian in with Altec, so that duo performing pretty solidly. But as a whole, it will be curious to see how they adapt to the changing metas with these the patches that are coming up leading up to the playoffs are going to make major changes. We'll see if Dignitas remains on this upward trend when all that falls into place. Now let's jump back to that Immortals versus Cloud9 series in which Immortals came out on top 2-1. Again, continued troubles for C9 off the back end of their Rift Rivals performance.
Yeah, I got to cast this series, and it was actually very close. C9 dominated the first game, but then down the stretch, Immortals was just making more solid plays, and specifically won almost games 2 and 3 off of some nice plays in the bottom lane. Double TP in the second game that you just saw the clip of was absolutely huge. Game 3, Flame did a number on Ray's Shen. He was 100 CS up.
The CS differential was rushing. Yeah.
A bit of a flame horizon right there, and then Immortals was able to kind of take home the victory. But much like the first time these guys played, a really close and competitive series.
Yeah, and actually afterwards, Smithy tweeted out, I don't know what happened, but we 2-0'd, so yay. Which is kind of like a little bit of, oh yeah, they did 2-0.
That doesn't inspire a ton of confidence for the future, but hey, either way, they got the victories.
Yeah, pretty crazy games. So
the point of it kind of is though that although there are 3 teams tied for first, in everybody's mind, it's really TSM as the really strong team.
Right.
That is pretty much #1, and the other teams have the records, but not necessarily the play right now to back it up.
Very much so. So again, we'll see how those teams jostle in the coming weeks. Finally, Phoenix won. 0-2 week right alongside C9 when the expectation coming hot off of a solid Rift Rivals performance was that they would put up some good games. We have to take into account the fact that they played TSM, though, first match of the week. Yeah. And if we're calling them solidly the #1 team, it's an expected loss. They also dropped their series to Dignitas, though, who is improving all of a sudden.
And the loss to Dignitas is the real punch in the gut for them because that was the team they kind of needed to leapfrog if they wanted to make the playoffs.
Right.
They're still at 3 wins, and they're 2/3 of the way through the split right now. So they wanted to make a playoff surge. Coming back and having an immediate goose egg in the win column really hurts them.
Yeah, I mean, C9, right, sitting at 6-6. Wow, they're sitting at 3-9 on Phoenix 1. C9's the mark of the 6th place sought for playoffs. You have 3 remaining weeks, 6 remaining games, or matches rather, in order to make 3 wins, and that would be if C9 didn't win a single one.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep line that's been drawn there as far as who gets into playoffs. So it's definitely going to take a lot of work from the teams that are currently under it.
Okay, so what?
At this point, they don't even need to think about playoffs. They need to think about 8 or higher, because then they maintain their championship points and they have a chance in the regional qualifier.
So what didn't work this weekend for them, Phoenix 1, as a team? Why did the losses come in?
TSM was one.
Yes.
Nunu was the other. They lost to Nunu twice against Team Dignitas, and that was huge.
Well, yeah, also the games where Dignitas got Callista, like the Callista going over to the other team was pretty big as well. Arrow did pick it up.
Yeah.
He played it versus TSM as well, but it was kind of
wishy-washy there. Running the Warlords Bloodlust twice in that series. He made the adjustments coming into their series against Dignitas to swap over to Fervor, but even still struggling in those games against both squads.
And I think that is kind of a direct result of going over to Rift Rivals, because a lot of the teams actually have mentioned talking about the Callista meta for their scrims.
Right.
And that meta over in North America has been going for a bit longer. They were over at Rift Rivals, had to play those games versus Europe, and then came back here. So playing a little catch-up, and you can see the difference in the Masteries, like you said.
Yeah, crunch time for Phoenix 1 if they want to make moves up the standings and even have a chance at playoffs, although it is an outside chance at that. Moving on to the OP5 in the top lane, we got Flame, followed by Lyra, Bjergsen, Doublelift, and Adrian. So a nice spread across teams this week. Who are the major standouts for you, though, amongst these 5?
For me, it's Flame, Doublelift, and Adrian, because Flame had a monster performance recently that we just saw, that Jat was casting, and then Doublelift absolutely clutching those games that we were just ending right now on Tristana.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like... right
here. Talk about this here, Dad.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, it's like he single-handedly snatched that victory out of the jaws of defeat, right? With that play there, because that was going to be a 3-for-1, turns into a 3-for-3 with all 3 kills going to him. It finally gives him the item spikes to do work in those late-game team fights to even carry it to a victory.
Piglet definitely opened the jaws with his Valkyrie forward in that one team fight. He was like, "Double if you want it."
I interviewed Doublelift after that game, and you could hear Zyrene talking about his damage per minute. He was so shocked that Doublelift did 1,400 damage per minute. He said it 3 times. And then Doublelift's like, how much damage per minute did I do that game?
Yeah,
1,400.
Yeah, 1384
Didn't quite hear you.
is the exact number in around 38 minutes of game time. Froggen being the only player to actually eclipse that with a game back in week 5 of 1,500 damage per minute. But
you know that by memory. I'm so impressed.
That's a Froggen thing. You know, it's like when it comes to stats, just
Demonte played the whole week.
I was gonna say, speaking of Froggen,
where's he at?
What happened?
Well, then, okay.
We gotta send out a search party.
We weren't planning to talk about this, but let's talk about it briefly. What's your opinion of Demonte?
I mean, Demonte.
He's not Froggen.
Exactly. Demonte is great. You know, he's fine. You know, he's North American talent, right? Coming out of solo queue.
Right.
He was a very highly ranked solo queue player for quite a long time. But again, the question remains, where is Froggen? So to me, the change has to have been some sort of communication thing within scrims, or the team wants to play the game a different way, because it can't be that purely mechanics. It can't be, you know, purely like individual skill, right? It has to be some sort of team issue or communication, I think.
Echo Fox has some explaining to do, I feel like, because you can talk about how you got this 10-man roster and you're doing double scrims, but you're trying to make playoffs and you're subbing out Looper and Froggen when you're up 1-0 and you're not going to start them?
Right.
What's happening?
Right. Yeah, no, it is. It's baffling. I mean, that change in and of itself was very strange for us when we were breaking down the first game of that series, saying, hey, really solid win put together by, Echo Fox here. If they just repeat the process, then they can get out of here nice and quick with a 2-0. They decide to switch things up, and everything goes off the rails.
The funniest answer that I heard is that by switching all the roster up and pushing it to game 3, they get more time on stage. They have 10 people that want stage time.
So they need the 3-game series to get everyone an equal amount of
just maximize the time on stage.
If you want to start a conspiracy theory, just Froggen refused to play this week.
There it is.
Right? But they didn't want anyone to know, so they subbed into Monte, and they're like, how can we make it seem logical? Let's sub out Looper 2. Make it seem like we're switching up everyone.
I got to get this show over. We're
We're
going off.
We're going to make a new show.
Right
Team Investigations.
Behind the scenes with Kobe and Jat. All right. Social media question of the day. What do you think the next big surprise will be to hit the NALCS? First up, oh my God, I swear, people pick the most impossible names for
Echo
me.
Fox will
You want to
sub
try
out
that?
all 5.
You want to try that?
Which one is it?
Cled Pinochet?
Yeah.
Cled Pinochet
That's
says,
fine.
Lyra carrying Team Envy to the playoffs semifinals. How crazy a prediction is that?
I was still hung up on the name. What did you say again? Oh, Lyra. Okay,
I mean, not as crazy as if you would have asked me last week.
Okay.
Because they 2-0'd, and somehow Envy just keeps winning. Although, I think a lot of Envy's wins almost feel like they are the best of the worst. So they're steady enough, and they're winning.
Okay.
I want to see higher quality wins. Cloud9 did not play well this week. Envy beat them. Their win against Echo Fox was weird as well. They're 7-6, and I don't really know how. So
Right.
Because they did 2-0, I could see it, but I'm not sold.
Well, I mean, based on the standings, tied for 4th, that puts them in semifinal position right there in terms of just pure ranking.
I will say that I do really enjoy Nisqy. I think that Nisqy's performance recently has been quite good, and I think that's definitely helping them out. Both mid laners seem to be have a good relationship and learning from each other. So.
Stellar performances on that Syndra specifically, but also branching out to a few other champions. Next up, Ivo Mihelsik. I'm going to assume. I think that Immortals will win Summer Split. Is that enough surprise for you?
Can't do it.
Is that enough surprise for you, Immortals winning the Summer Split?
I mean, considering TSM, COD, and C9 have won every split, I would be surprised.
Even in the past.
Well, I would say it's very much a surprise only because already the organization in its infancy has developed this stigma that they can perform in regular season but not so much in playoffs, and that's what it will require, of course, is the performance in those best-of-5s all the way through finals in Boston if they want to make this prediction a reality.
I think that is an interesting topic to kind of attack because I feel like so much of the Immortals, smashing in regular season and then not performing in playoffs had to do with the players that were on the roster at that time, specifically Huni. Just Huni, honestly. and the way that Huni plays and the degree to which he could smash scrims. And the coaching staff that they had at that time also was different. So they've got a new coach, they have new players, and I think that organization kind of deserves a shot to move past that. I think that this is kind of that shot. I don't think that, as Jad said, this team looks like right now they can match up to TSM. They definitely have shown a lot of good things, and coordination was definitely one of them. But
the stigma shouldn't apply. This team plays in a different kind of ground-up way. They just built towards their success rather than hitting it on the
and if you want to talk about the differences between the former roster and this one, on top of removing Huni, you bring in, again, Smithy and Pobelter, two guys who all have been on that stage, specifically here in North America, and have won on that stage. So when it gets to the postseason, if those guys can really, slot in those leadership roles and help the youngsters on the squad, then they could quite possibly come away with a victory. Anyway, that's going to do it for the Twitter questions and for NALCS tonight. We want to get everyone out of here so you can go watch Game of Thrones. I know these two gents are big on that. So that's going to do it for us here. Good night to you at home.
King in the North.
And
King
we'll
in the
see
North.
You next week.
Everybody does.
Is that you, Kobe? Are you the King of the North?
That's me.
All right.